Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
I'm Roger Burnley, and I am in Los Angeles, California now. I'm originally from Chicago, and by New York, I lived there, but now I am an intuitive empowerment life purpose coach, and I say that because I've had so many other careers, but now I'm also a spiritual channel.
Well, welcome to the show, Roger. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, just remind us there, well, maybe you never mentioned it, but what it is that you actually channel, how this works for you then.
Okay. I channel Wilhelm, which is my higher self, my guide, or however we speak of it. But it's not like some of the others who say they're connected to some of the other entities and all. Mine has been more universal, is what has come through for me. And that began in 1988. And that was the beginning of the journey. And this is something that I never completely trusted, which is why I'm so grateful that I can talk about it now. And I've waited for years to come and talk to you to really kind of bring this out. I called myself the reluctant mystic for so long. And it's a time in our world where I can no longer be that. So that's where it began, though, in 1988. And let me just give you that story. Let's start there, because I have gone through so many changes in my life. But in 1988, I was making another change into a different career. And I had been meditating for a while. I had done A Course in Miracles. I'd done some other things like that, but I never really hung out in the so-called spiritual community or the New Age. I stayed away from it. But when I needed help in 1988, I read an article about automatic writing. And this guy was going through some things. He said it helped him in terms of his business. So I said, let me try it. I sat down for a few days with pen and paper, as he suggested. Nothing happened. Then one day, it felt as if my hand was taken over. And I started writing, and this information came through, and it frightened me. And I literally said, who's speaking to me? And I heard, this is your higher self, or however you think of that. But if that makes you uncomfortable, you can call us whatever you like. And this is exactly what I heard. And then at that moment, I said, Wilhelm. Didn't know why that name came out. And it took 30 years to figure out why that I picked that name. It was connected to my evolutionary journey, which I had no clue of at that time.
Right, okay. And you sent me a recording that's on your YouTube channel, which we'll put the links below, a recording of Wilhelm. Actually,
yes.
I didn't know that the entity's name was, well, it's your higher self, let's call it that for now, was called Wilhelm. Yeah. But when I was listening back to it, getting ready for this interview, it was really impressive. I actually thought I was listening to you for a minute, but then I realized, oh no, actually, this is not Roger. This is another aspect of Roger.
Yeah. And that was the thing that was really challenging for me to accept, because when I'm going into channel, I don't remember it. And just even last night, I was led back to that particular video that I sent to you, and it just blew me away, because as I'm hearing it, I go, well, I knew everything. It was told in that session. But what I've done is I put things away. I've kind of run from myself for a while, and so I didn't hear it. But it's a time now where I've got to talk about it more.
No, what it had to say was really good. Again, we'll link the session that we're talking about
Hmm.
here in the description below. So before we get into your backstory then, and we've kind of
Hmm.
started there, but let's just go to your website. Your website is?
RogerBurnley.com.
Okay, and what do you offer on there?
I offer personal training now. What I did, my program is there. The program that I created, which is called Your Last Development Program, that is there, and also my other coaching. See, I spent also 36 years being a vocal coach globally. I mean, I coached everywhere. I coached so many stars and all sorts of people, and that's where I began, which also didn't make sense because I didn't know I could do that. I didn't have any training, and it was so weird. But I became this world-renowned vocal coach doing all of these things, and I come to find out that was another part of the intuitive side of me that came through, and that I just had these skills to do this. We all kind of find things that develop as we live, but this was surprising for me. So I had to go through this divorce from my old self, basically, because I got moved into this new work that was more important in our world right now, is what started coming up for me many years ago. About 2016, I knew I had to start moving in a different direction.
Just the basics then here for people, and for my understanding, for what you understand it to be as well. So we know what you channel, and what is
Hmm.
channeling to you? I ask a lot of people this question, but it's always different for everyone else. So
Hmm.
would be interested to hear your answer.
To me, channeling is getting into this place where we get rid of our conscious mind, the ones that we've been using, and access the connection that we have to spirit, to source, to God, whatever that is, because there's a universal communication that goes on that we all can understand. But it's we live in different dimensions. We're multi-dimensional beings, and so as we live our individual lives, we might move to those higher dimensions if we're working at it. But there are always more that we can ascend to, and that's really what I think of now. But it sometimes becomes uncomfortable when we uncover those new parts of ourselves because it's an unknown, which is exactly the experience I had in 1988. It was just unknown to me. And then I hid it for years. Didn't want anybody to know.
So we can all use channeling ourselves, can't we? And
Yes.
we can all channel for ourselves, can't we? And that could be quite
Mm.
empowering for those wishing to sort of want to experiment with that.
Right. And part of my mission, I think, believe, is to give people permission to do that because they do hear communication. I tell people, think about it. They said, well, I can't do that. I said, well, when you close your eyes and you're just thinking, you hear thoughts. There's something going on there. We're not just empty, but we are usually working with our thoughts that we already know, things we know. But if we become quiet, we hear something else. And that was the practice that came through meditation for so many years.
What is your most important teaching, do you think? What's the most important message of your work, would you say?
Is that everyone who was born has a valuable purpose to bring to the world. That's my message. And then when the more of us who understand that, we start creating a different world, we start creating one that we all love, that we can all prosper, where we can all live, where we stop killing each other and having wars. And that was the message that I was meant to bring through, and especially during this time of transition in our world, which I know a lot of people haven't understood completely.
So what you're saying there as well is live the life that you feel pulled and attracted to go towards, which
Yes.
can change through your life
Yes.
time here, right? And that
Yes,
actually,
exactly.
no matter what's going on in the bigger picture of the world, by living in purpose, you're changing your micro world in a sense, but that's having a ripple effect to something much greater that you don't probably always get to understand or see
Yes.
on that bigger level.
Yes, and that you used the right term because they gave me messages about the ripple effect. They said you don't understand that your energy can have this effect that will reach millions, can reach everywhere because it's all energy. And when we understand that our complete universe is about energy and our body, well, all of us, but it's the quality of the energy that we each bring to the world. And it's supposed to feel good. So if we're doing things that are aligned with us, we feel good. It's a higher level of vibration or of energy.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, not every part of that journey is going to feel great or good, I suppose. But
No,
the bigger picture,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
You just would love to do what you're doing, regardless of maybe even how much money you're making from it, right?
Exactly. And that's the part that we get lost in, that because it doesn't seem, we come into this three-dimensional world, this physical world, this physical plane, and it is about money and all of that. And we think that that gives us value and who we're supposed to be. So we can be cut off from what our innate sense is telling us we should be doing, the thing that causes us to feel good. And this is exactly what I struggled with for so long. And a lot of people do. It's something that we each have that causes us to enjoy who we are. But to get there, as you said, we have to work through all the old stuff. And the old stuff is in our DNA. It could be generational. It could be from our ancestors, our whatever, wherever we came from. We all have it. We come into the world with these strings, let's say, that are limitations. There are restrictions and limitations, and they're different for every person, but we have to break through them and move through them.
So if we try to sum up your work then, and I know we've kind of asked this already, but I just want to do it before we get into the journey as well. But someone coming to you, or the majority of people coming to you, what is the sort of the theme with all of them which you help to overcome with them in their journey?
Is to understand their life purpose and their life journey, because some of it would have been terrible. Some of it might have been uncomfortable, horrible. They think they failed or did something wrong. Well, they were moving through something they agreed to do. And once they move through that, other people don't have to. We can think of this, if parents can think of this as terms of their kids, like they know that they are giving their kids a support so they don't have to move through the things that the parents did. Well, we're all doing that as a civilization. We're just doing it our individual ways, and we have unique evolutionary journeys that we're supposed to follow or live up to, because if we live up to them, then we feel great and we have everything we want in our lives.
Absolutely. And some of that work that you do as well is, moving through limitations and this purpose, this, whatever this is that you've maybe for some of us been working through a good part of your life towards, which we'll get into your journey, which kind of is that sort of space as well, that this purpose can happen at any time of your life, and maybe everything's in purpose, but that real joyous part, it's not guaranteed when you're younger, and it's not guaranteed when you're old. It'll happen when you're ready, and there's a timing to it as well.
Yes. And unfortunately, some people, and like me, we have been programmed so long and so deeply that we don't break through the ties, and because we don't believe we can. The strings, the things that are holding us back. And then so many people, I can talk to them and say, listen, yeah, you had some bad times, but you just have to understand what the purpose is, and then you can move through that, because we understand it's just about your brain. It's just the neuroscience, and you can move through it and feel better. But when you've been conditioned to think, no, I'm not worth anything, I don't have much, it's difficult to change that. And even to convince people that they can change it is challenging.
Well, that's why we're going to share your journey. That's why you do share your journey, because that's also helping people to break free, to show that they can do it as well.
Yes.
And yes, I'm sure that some lifetimes we maybe have gone through where we haven't lived out to our purpose, and we've blocked a lot of things off, including what the potentials of what we could really have come here to do with joy.
That happens in some of my channeling sessions. I get called out all the time in my channeling sessions. Roger's holding out. Roger's hiding. They say we're using him as an example.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you've done an amazing book as well. I just want to mention that, Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom. So that's available at all good bookstores. Again, we'll link that in the description below, but that's just coming up on the screen as well. Okay, and that's a whole nother show, really. That book is right, but we're going to get into some parts of it, because that's a really important. There's some really important nuggets. Well, I actually enjoyed reading parts of that book. I've not read it all, but I'm like, you know what? That's a whole nother show, right?
Yeah. That took a long time to get to me, because, again, I get pushed. I have to be completely honest. I didn't want to do it because I knew if I wrote the book, I had to, I have to talk about overcoming fear, but then I have to tell them that I did this by channeling information, and that's what I use. And people are going, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. This was, again, my old programming. And fortunately, I had a friend who stayed on my case to get it done.
Yes, they did. And everything is in alignment, isn't it? When people come into our lives when they're meant to be there, and
Mhm.
whatever lessons that we're here to learn, when we can look back sometime and say, you know what, that person kicked my ass, but or that relationship was really destructive, or why was there never no ease in just having the friendship that I was supposed to have with that person? But when you can look back, sometimes maybe you're pushing each other in ways that you don't really quite understand.
Yes. And I kind of think of it, talk about this quite a bit. I'm going to do a lot of relationship work because that's very important in us becoming our authentic selves. But sometimes we don't understand those horrible relationships that we attracted to ourselves, but we did that because there was something that we wanted to move through. And these other people, which could be a sense of a twin flame, they showed up to help us with that. So it's about changing our perspective. Then we don't have to stay in those limited situations. That's a whole nother thing too, because I talk about that, especially with women and women who have been in certain situations and that whole bit. That's another show.
Well, let's just mention your YouTube channel. Do you know what the YouTube address is?
Wisdom. The one where I have the Wilhelm is Wisdom from Wilhelm. That's the YouTube channel there. And then I have my other personal development things on Roger Burnley Coaching,
Okay, so they can all just people can mainly go to the website, and there'll
the
be links
website.
on there. Again, we'll
Yes.
put it in the description below. So you call yourself the reluctant mystic, but actually, I just want to
Mhm.
ask you before I go into that, you speak a lot about your guides, and
Mhm.
your guides are different to Wilhelm, yes?
Mm. No, Wilhelm is a collective that I can say because even I had an Akashic Records reading done a while ago, and they said, well, at one point you had sometimes you have different ones that come through. I have no distinction in that because it's just always been Wilhelm to me, but it has felt at certain times that the messages changed. They were a little different. And that's what happened for me in 2012, obviously, which I didn't understand, but there were different messages that came through during that period that were meant to be used now. That's what the thing that I had to come to accept.
Interesting. Okay, so when you speak about the guides, it's
Hmm.
it's this it's Wilhelm, it's this.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's a collective. That's really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, do your guys speak to you? I guess you. Yeah, how do your guys speak to them? What's that relationship with your guys? Because when you're doing readings or sessions for people,
Hmm.
that's is
Hmm.
is that a little bit of a different energy to being consciously in contact with the guides?
A little bit different because what will happen is that when I'm speaking with the person, information will just come out and I know it's not me. I know that I'm being fed information from Wilhelm because I didn't have any understanding of this. And then unfortunately for my clients, I don't remember it. And so they'll say, remember when you said this? I go, no, because most likely it was me accessing cosmic information that I'm giving them, and so I don't have that memory right away, but it's always something that just kind of hits them. So I and th- what came out through a lot of my channeling sessions when I started doing live channelings that they said this is when we speak, as Willem said, when we speak, we are talking to your higher self and you're just remembering. That's why it resonates. Because people would always say the messages that I write daily, they said it felt like the guides were speaking directly to them. So, well, it's a universal communication that we all have.
Thank you. So, okay, a mystic. How would you sum up what a mystic is in today's modern era?
A mystic is we have this need that we just have to be helpful. We just have this sense of that we are put on the earth to be helpful. And unfortunately sometimes we even sacrifice ourselves and our own lives to do this, which is so challenging to explain to people. Why would we choose to do this? But there's something deep within that we know that we can make a difference, that we know that somehow our lives, no matter what we've gone through, it was for a grander, greater purpose for the collective, basically.
Okay, well, thank you. So, let's go to, well, let's start off really with Okay, so you had an accounting job at 19. That's where you kind of had your first start, right? Which is kind of different to where we are now. Very useful. I think everything we do, right, has got a use somewhere. I'm sure having the accountancy
Yeah.
background as a use, but you felt when doing that job that you were just really, that was not your path. And
No.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
It showed up. It showed up in
Right.
how I did. Well, how I did. I was late. I did. Okay.
Well, and
But I
this,
stayed there.
yeah, yeah. And this was when you lived back in New York,
No, I was Chicago then. I was still in
Chicago.
Chicago
Okay.
from there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Before I moved to New York. Yeah.
And then you got into a beauty salon, and that again was very different. Did that take you to New York? I mean, you can tell us
Yes.
the
That took
journey.
again because what happened was I had no experience in this, but I had a friend who had I wanted to leave the accounting job because they wanted me to go back to college to finish because they said everything you're doing, you need to have a college degree for this. And I which I did. And I said, I don't want to do that. And so then this friend offered me this job, and I said, oh, okay, I don't know what it is, but I'll try it. But what happened after I did it, I started working. The person that was supposed to train me left after, a couple of days, and that was crazy. So I'm left alone. I had to figure it out. But then in about a year and a half, out of 500 salons that this company owned, mine was the most productive. It was the highest grossing, and they couldn't figure out how I was doing that. And so they kept coming to Chicago to visit me, and then they brought me to New York to ask me questions. I go, I don't know. And then eventually they said, we're going to move you to New York. So that's how I got to New York to go to the Plaza Hotel.
Right. Okay. And you would say as well that we never end up in a place that we don't belong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
There's always something that leads us onto the journey, doesn't it? And that's happened for you
Yes.
many, many times. And we're going to kind of fast forward in some of these bits here. But let's go up to 1988. I think you were doing the vocal coaching training then.
Mhm.
Was that right? That started?
Well, yes. Well, yeah, I started then, and I only started because my coach at the time says you have to do this. I said, no, I'm not capable. I can't do this. He says, yes, you can. He knew more than I did, and he says you will be better than me one day. And he told me to quit my job. That's why I was freaked out because I didn't have anything else. I had no clients. And he said, no, you have to do this. So I said, okay, let me try this. And then I started, and then he was correct because as I started, I saw how much better I just kept getting over time. And then other people started finding me because of that. But I didn't think I had that skill. And it was all, I know now, it was all intuitive. And
Yeah.
that's what was coming through.
And it was around that time that the automatic writing started for yourself. And
Yes.
what was that process like? I mean, what triggered that off for you?
Fear.
Right.
Because I said I was desperate. I said I got to try something. I need some help. My family was getting really sick of me because they didn't know what I was, why I kept changing everything, and I'm running out of money. I'm doing all of that. So I said, let me just pray here or something. And so that's how it began because I just needed some help. And then when it first started coming through, it, like I said, it just really surprised me. And then I started asking questions. I would ask very specific questions about what I needed answers to, what was going on in my life. And at one point, I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm controlling things, which has been my problem, is trying to control our experience. And so then I said, okay, I'm just going to allow them to tell me whatever. And I just started writing any advice for today, which is the name of that's the website that I have where the messages are. But I just said, I'm going to be open to whatever information I need to come to me because it may not be what I'm focused on. It may not be what I'm trying to get the answers to. And most times it wasn't.
Any advice for today? What was that then? That was a website you had back in.
And I still have it. It's still there. And what I did, because they get my direction was so clear, was that you are trying to control things and you're not, yeah, you're receiving information, but it may not be what you need. It's what you want to know, but that may not be what you need.
How did you trust that process that this voice was not your conscious voice in a sense?
It feels different. It feels very different. And when I would sit and meditate, and it's a different, what would happen typically in the beginning, it doesn't quite do this anymore. It's shifted. But when I would sit and meditate, there would be something, I would have all this information coming through, but there would be something that would keep repeating. And it would keep repeating. And I said, okay, I'm supposed to write now. Or I would get a signal in my body, which would be like a shift or a shake. And this, okay, which was saying, please just start writing because you know what it is. Because I would hesitate. And many of my writings, if people go and they'll see that, they say, yeah, we waited a long time for Roger to start writing this, because I could hear it, but it was just like, do I want to say this really? That's what would go on quite a bit.
Okay. So that carried on for a number of years.
Mhm.
But you didn't really go out there as a, it wasn't really giving readings, were you? It was more of
Never.
this was a private sort of thing. And did you really, I mean, I want to lead up to 2008 for a
Right.
reason, right? But in between 2008 and 1988, right, in that period, yeah, we didn't have Roger the Mystic then. That was not, no.
I was hiding. I didn't want anybody to know what it was doing. I knew that it was changing my life, because no matter what I had been through, when I sat down in the morning to do my writing, my meditation and writing, I would feel better. I would get information that would get me to move on. But that didn't make sense to me even. And so in 2007, I believe it was, someone came into my office and found one of my writings on my desk and read it and said, wow, this really helped me. Where'd it come from? And I had to tell them, well, it came through me. Then they asked me to start, and I said I do it all the time. They said, please send them to me. And that's how that began, just from that instance.
Okay, so let's go up to 2008. And
Mhm.
then we've got the crash in the US, the market crash.
Right.
Which
Right.
at the time you were trying to get something up and running, a business up and running. And this, I think it was in music production, or you'd have to
It was
correct
the
me.
biggest thing yes, it was the biggest thing I'd ever done in my life. It was just huge. I was gonna, because I'm always about, let me help the world, and I opened this music and entertainment complex. It was this huge space, 6,400 square feet. And I said, I just need to have all people here who are creating something. And then the crash happened. And so now I'm sitting there trying to hold on to this thing, which I have zero money, and nobody's investing now because everything's falling apart. And I did everything in my power. I sold my entire life, everything that I had at that time, to try to keep this thing going. Also, knowing that, wait a minute, you're being guided to do something else now. So that was okay. So I finally let that go. And then that's when I started into an online music thing.
Okay, but was that, when you look back now, how much of yourself were you fighting to do what you really should have been doing? Were you really living in purpose and passion at that moment?
No, I was trying to do all the things that I thought would make me look great to the world, because it would give me this money, it would be prestige, it would be all of these things. That was part of, the part of it is I love helping people, and I want everyone else. I've done that quite a bit too. I wanted everyone else to have a place to come and perform and learn and all of that. And it worked great for a while. So that was part of it, but it wasn't fulfilling me on a deeper level. So the crash needed to happen.
Yeah. I mean, how many people and how many of us have gone through that, right? Doing something we shouldn't be doing. And in the end, and we don't even see it through. That's how much it really wanted to come into. Well, you did see it through as far as you could do, but
As far as I could,
yeah. So many of us have been through that. And again, that's probably a chapter in your book of fear. In fear in so many ways. So thank you for sharing that. So then we're going to, I suppose, there was people that came into your life just after that came out of nowhere, in a sense, that pushed you along your journey. 2009, 2010, you started getting into some other training. You'll have to fill the blanks in.
I started doing different things when I started working on my music thing, because I met a person, someone from Australia contacted me. He had seen my work, and he says, you need to be bigger. You need to be all over the world. And I said, oh, fine, let's do a business. And at this time, after losing everything, I was looking for anything that where I would earn money. So this started, and it turned out that it really worked. And we started making all this money selling these courses. But then he started telling me, everybody tells me things that I don't see. He started, along the way, he says, I think you're supposed to be doing personal development. I think you're supposed to be doing something else here. That's what he kept saying. But I was resisting. And then I decided, okay, I'll take one step into this and I'll create a program. And I called it The Complete Artist, because I knew that an artist, even performing, if they are in touch with who they are, they're going to be a better performer. If they're doing things that are aligned with them, that are innate, they're going to be for all of us. And so, but I thought people are not going to understand this. But I did it, and it did kind of start moving me in this direction of connecting people to their soul, to who they are.
Which did that then sort of move you towards what you're doing now? In a sense, it must have done. Because I mean,
slowly,
this vocal channeling that you're doing now with Wilhelm, where did that come into being a reality for you in a sense? What was that step?
Because I got yelled at more. They yell at me. I use that phrase lovingly, because I get pushed. And several things happened. First of all, since 1988, I would sit and I would write these messages every day. As the years went on, the information started coming through a lot quicker, and I would write it, and I couldn't read it. It was because I'm trying to put it down and I just couldn't read it. And then I said, okay, I got to do something different. So then it shifted, and I said, I was running out of room of putting all these messages. So they said, just type them. You don't need to do that. And so then I started going to typing. That worked for a while. Then as things started changing in the world, they said, okay, we have too much to say. You have to start speaking. You have to start speaking. I would occasionally, starting in about 2017, information would come and I would be somewhere and I'd pick up my phone and I would just channel something into my phone. But I wasn't going to let anybody hear it. It was just for me. But it was giving me all the information, understanding that I needed. So, but in 2021, they said, no, you've got to change. And that's when I started doing the live channeling sessions.
Right. So that's when it kind of all changed for you. And what was that life like then, since then? I mean, how rewarding has it been? How much in purpose do you feel now than you've ever done before, and any of the sort of career work and path that you've been on before compared to this?
The most ridiculous thing is to say at my age, to say that I finally found myself. And I just want people to understand, doesn't matter, I'm 72, just so everybody knows. And so for me to say that I finally found myself now, I just need everybody to understand it doesn't matter when you do that, as long as you do it. Because we might fight it. We have to work through the mental, the blocks and all of that. But at some point we must live the fulfillment of our whatever potential, whatever we were given. And so when I first started the first channel, I was terrified because I thought I can't do this. And so, but I made and this worked really well, because I would have something, I was on camera, but I would always have a message on the screen. I had to close my eyes because the information just comes easier that way. My energy gets broken if I'm seeing people. But when I first started, I thought this was going to be weird and strange, but it was so surprisingly comfortable. And then it just kept getting better and better. And then it was what started to happen when I would plan a channeling session. They would start sending me so much information that night or day. It was just crazy. I would get all this information, and then I would go into a session. I just have to kind of allow it to be organized so it could all come through in a way that would make sense.
Yeah, and I should just say, probably from 2020, messages did start coming in for you. That there was a great change going to happen in the world. I mean, I'm personifying your words here, but even to the point that a new Hitler would rise, and I'm guessing that would be someone like, Putin or,
exactly.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Well, that could be debated, but yeah, with other, with some other countries right now. But
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it was the energy. That's what they were saying.
The energy of it, yes.
The energy, yeah.
So, and now what you even sent me today, when you look back at some of these recordings, and you still obviously do these recordings, the what's in these messages, it really fascinating stuff when you just hear the words, and they all sort of mean something, don't they?
And
deeper.
It was surprising to me, because I've done this a lot. If I don't go back and listen, I don't get the full impact. I mean, and I guess a lot of us do this. We use hindsight, where we understand things a little bit differently. But the one particular message that I'll talk about, the one that I sent you, was from December of 2022. And my best friend of 36 years had just died the night before. And I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to do that. I was just grieving and grieving, but in my grief, as I'm just crying like crazy that night, and I could feel her presence come in at that time. And then I kind of like moved into this other place. Then when I did the session the next morning, it was like, oh, she's supporting me now, because I felt that she was always holding me back before, and so now she's supporting me because she understands what I'm doing, and that was so powerful, and I had forgotten, because what I also do sometimes is I put things away, because if I don't want to be exposed, let me not tell people how good this is. Let me not tell them. I can keep hiding.
Yeah, yeah. I get you. I get you. I mean, yeah, because what I want to just add to that is,
Hmm.
well, everyone's born with something amazing, aren't they, to bring to the world? That's part of you,
Yes.
the message of this as well, isn't it?
Yes, and I say that for every single person. It's the only thing I want them to understand. I don't care how you came in, I mean, people talk about that. Well, I have this disability, or I have this thing. Okay, yeah, well, the universe wanted you to bring that in because it's going to be helpful in some way when you understand the value that you have.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've just been kind of recently diagnosed with ADHD. That must have been a big surprise. And I know you've got a YouTube channel out there right now, which is helping people of a certain age, to cope with that
Because,
diagnosis.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I didn't find anybody who I searched the internet to see if anyone was talking about finding out this diagnosis at 70 years old. I couldn't find anything. So I said, okay, then it means I'm supposed to do it. So I created a YouTube channel, ADHD at 70. But then I was also told that that was my gift, because we put the stigma on it. They said, no, this is why you were able to receive information, because there's always another benefit with whatever condition we have, and that's why I was able to do this. I went through the grief though, and sadness when I found it was horrible. Oh yeah, it was crazy, but then I turned it around.
You were going to say something to me, I believe. There was something you wanted to.
You,
Yes.
because yeah, okay. So years ago, I discovered your channel, and I said, and it was so comforting for me, because it gave me this feeling. Okay, there are other people doing this. I'm not so strange. I'm not so weird. That's really what happened. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'm supposed to contact Kevin. I couldn't do that. I was just hiding out. It took me so long to even find your information and say, let me just send an email. Again, I have to be pushed to move into those places. And we all need that kind of support and help. So you've offered it.
Well, here we are. Here we are, right? And I'm going to quote you again, right? Because I think some of these are great. We are supposed to own who we are and what we're here to do.
Right.
Okay. I'm banging on about that because I just think that message has come through so many people recently, and maybe a bit more than that, right? Finding purpose, moving past limitations, what you're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that this seems to be the energy of the time.
Right. Let me explain in a different way, because this would come through in a lot of the channeling sessions. They say we've gone through civilizations where we've had changes in our complete entire globe. We have just never lived through one like this. And so I didn't understand that. They started telling me that we're moving through a restructuring. I go, what does that mean? I said, well, you just need to make a better world. That's why you are all here now. So everyone alive is contributing to that in some way, and we're contributing energetically. And if we're loving ourselves, moving through our previous limitations and restrictions, we're offering light and love, and so the world will get better. But we need more people doing that, who are owning who they are, loving themselves, but it means walking through the darkness, walking through all the old stuff, and that's what the world is doing as well. Then they said the United States would lead the way. Made no sense to me. And I'm right back. I would sit forever hearing this, and they said, please write, Roger, just put it down there. Then later I found out why that was. And now we're seeing it play out, because the United States was going through what was called a Pluto return. This is in the astrology. They said everything is connected. Your planets, the galaxies, everything's connected, and it's all energy. And so the Pluto return is what the United States was moving through, and we had to have a reckoning and looking at how have we been living? How have we been living up to what we said we were going to do as a nation, which was being free and giving equality to all? That's what it
Yes,
was.
absolutely. Thank you for that. That's so interesting. And yes, I think it's so important to hear, because a lot of us are trying to hold on to who we were, not who
Yes.
we're becoming, right? And
Right.
we just won't let go sometimes, will we? Oh my
Oh,
God.
it's the resistance that I had so much, it's just terrible. And I knew that because I had many illnesses, many diseases, illnesses all throughout my entire life. I can see now that they were all resistance. And because I've perfected this mind body connection, I've healed absolutely everything with this work.
So you say in your book as well that, which is your book, Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom, which is on the screen right now, you say there's nothing to fear. We all have nothing
Mhm.
to fear, really.
Right. That's it. But it's a concept that is so challenging for us to understand because we think of ourselves as physical beings that are here in our body, but we're not that. We're spirits. We're eternal spirits. This is what my guides keep telling. You've always been here. You just have different incarnations, and you're having one now. And you just figure out in each lifetime, that's how they explain it, that you live, what things you're going to move through now, what things you're going to develop, what are you going to create, what are you going to add to the collective.
Right. And for some people, that may not always look like it should fit in, right?
Right.
Sometimes, even though
Exactly.
what you're doing
Yes.
is not actually hurting anyone, because that's not living out of love, right? Doing something that's harmful to someone else, right? And yourself.
Right.
But
Right.
it may not always fit what we think is the kind of 9 to 5 job.
Exactly. And that's the part that becomes challenging because this is the other part why this particular period they said was going to be a little challenging because we have to break down the old paradigms, the old structures. That's why they said it's restructuring, doing things in a new way so that we can usher in a new world. And that's what we're all doing. And everyone alive is contributing in one way or another. They're all contributing because it's all energetic. But how? What's the energy that we're putting in?
Right. And I guess some people might be thinking, well, how do I overcome fear? That's the title of the book, but how do I actually overcome it? By what means?
It's a process. It's just a mental process, and we understand when we came to understand neuroscience, how we have been programmed and how we create neural pathways that cause us to think in a particular way, operate in a way. When we understood that, said, oh, well, we can change that because that's within our control, because it's just our thoughts. Our thoughts are all energetic, but if we're not aware that we've been programmed into smallness, into thinking we're limited, it's challenge. We can't get out of that. So, and the reason that what I did, because I wrote it every single day, that was they're saying that's why it works. You have to be consistent with doing this, breaking through these barriers that we all have.
Yeah. And in the end, using fear maybe for our own success.
Yes, they gave me so many messages like that. They said, sometimes you use it for motivation. Now, you don't want to get to the place where you need to do that all the time, but sometimes you do. And one, they said, if you embrace it, because then you know that what this is that you're afraid of, if you break through it, it causes you to expand. It causes you to evolve and become more. So that becomes a different mental attitude. Oh, yeah, I'm afraid of this. There are two things, I'll tell you this. They said there are two types of fears that you can have. One is what they call a real fear. That means something that you could hurt yourself, kill yourself, or someone else. That's a damaging feel. But then everything else is something you made up. Everything else is an artificial fear. And so you got to decide if you're going to move through it, and if it's something that's going to help you become more loving to yourself, basically.
Yeah, isn't that the most important part as well? Becoming loving to yourself, and maybe being
Yes.
honest as well with yourself.
Yes, they would give me brutal honesty quite a bit, as a matter of fact, because we do know. We don't, but we kind of avoid, and that's what you got to just look at. What are you doing here? And that takes me back to my mother. And she used to always say, the acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Yeah. Said it all the time. I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about.
You will. Yeah. Oh, good mom. Yeah, isn't that such a good acronym? I've heard that before. Yeah, but it's so true, isn't it? It is false evidence
Yeah.
appearing real.
Yes. Yeah. And then we start to understand, well, then if we lean into it, if we believe it, then we're also using our creative minds to create it. Because whatever we're going to put our attention on, because they gave me this a lot too. They said they gave me focused attention. They say with focused attention, you can do anything because you're using your energy of your thoughts to direct energy in a way of something that you want to have manifest rather than focusing on the other crap that you don't want, you know?
Yeah, and then when does it all end? Is it the end of fear at some point, do you think?
No. Yeah, these are the messages that I kept getting. And then the doubt too. They said, you're never going to be done with it because you're eternal. You can go to higher levels of understanding. And so going to that next place, which is going to still be an unknown, you might have some doubt. You're going to have some. I had tons and tons of doubt. And then they said the only way you get rid of the doubt, because it's so uncomfortable, do the thing that you doubt.
Yeah, isn't that the scary part sometimes as well? Yeah, but when as you've said during this interview, you break through it, look
Mhm.
what's on the other side. And how many people have said that in different ways, right?
All right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we're all going through the same thing. That's an important energy of this time as well. It has been,
Yes.
but right now it's definitely
Hmm.
in the consciousness, isn't it? In a
Hmm.
sense. So thank you for all that. When you channel, then it's pretty quick for you, isn't it? You just sort of can bring that energy through pretty quickly.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of, I have to take a moment to kind of focus and then just get there and see. But then it just depends on what might be going on. I am A lot of my information is connected to a universal level, what's going on in the world, because it's about getting each individual to understand how important they are in manifesting our world. And because this is the kind of we okay, the what they gave me, that we have these iterations of civilizations and each time we get a little bit better, and what they meant was that each time we start to include more people, we start to become more equal. They brought in, because the other thing that I started receiving was that women were going to be, feminine energy would be more important during this period because it's been off balance for so long. And so now but then we're going to see what we see exactly going on in the world now, where the men in power are going to say, no, don't do that. We're not going to give the women freedom. We're not going to do that. In different countries, we see that going on. And so this is the kind of struggle that's going on. But again, when we understand energetically that we're all the same, we eventually start creating civilizations that support us in a different way.
that is so true. Yeah, and so many other people have been saying that more recently as well. That's
Mm,
an important part of this time right now. Well, I'm kind of like curious to hear from Wilhelm, even if it
mm,
was just a message, because I think that
mhm.
I actually do like your channeling, right? I do. I was taken back a bit by it, just by
Mm,
the yeah, just certain
mhm,
channels resonate with me and stuff. So yours did, and I'm sure there's a message for the audience. And if there was any
mhm,
interaction there, fine. But if it was just a message, that's great as well.
mhm. Yes, we can do that. Give me, okay, I do have something. Give me just 1 second. Let me bring something in. We are so pleased you've invited us here, and we've waited for you your entire lives. Now, we mean that to everyone. We mean that to whenever you might hear this message, because it will still resonate for you, because it is the same. You are on a magnificent evolutionary journey, and part of that journey is to cause your life to become better. And as you do that, you create the world that you want to see, and that world will be one that is better. There is no accident that it ever happens, and you would not be on the physical plane on the earth at this time unless your existence was so important. Your existence mattered, no matter what you have gone through before, because many of you judge your lives. You judge all the things that you have done before. You thought you made mistakes and you did things wrong. You did not. You were just figuring things out, and you were remembering who you were. You were remembering your essence. And as you remember that essence, you bring it into the world, and it's light and it's love, and it causes everything to become more. Now, yes, you do exist in a chaotic time in your world. But we've told you over and over again that chaos is and is necessary at sometimes in human experience, physical experience, because then you find unity, because the chaos becomes too uncomfortable at some point. And so you have to answer the questions that you're asking of yourselves. Who am I? What is my importance? And then you start to bring together your division that existed within you. Everything that is occurring in your world exists within you. Divisions exist within you. Conflict exists within you. Contradictions exist within you as well. And then you see them manifest. However, you exist at a glorious time now, because this is the greatest period that you have ever experienced. It's the greatest lifetime any of you have ever lived. And all you have to do is love yourselves. And everything that we have given you all these years has been giving you the ability, the tools to be able to move through your blockages, your restrictions, everything that's held you back, so that you could live these glorious lives and start loving yourselves so that you can love one another, because you start to find out that you're all the same, and you come back to source, you come back to God, you come back to your innate being, which is so marvelous. And that is why you're here. Everything that we have given you, and we want to say this again because we've given you so much information, it's been for decades now, to understand that you've been on a timeline, this trajectory, this timeline. And we said we gave you most of it in 2012, but it's been beyond that, because you've all been on this journey. But no matter where you are, no matter how old you are, no matter when you might hear this, your journey is worth it. Your journey is important. Otherwise, you would not have come into the world. You wouldn't have chosen to be born. We want to say that again. You chose it. You chose every experience you've had. You've chose every circumstance, because if you were to understand how they were serving you and your evolutionary journey, you would live a magnificent life and you would offer that to your world. And that is the work that we're giving you. And we want you to understand that we are coming through Roger just to have you remember who you are, because you have a higher self. You have the same thing, but you just don't always listen. But we will say certain words that you resonate with, and you feel that because you're remembering who you are and your importance in being in the world, which is why you chose to be here now. And we just want to say that you are so loved. You are so loved, and everything that you have done has been for the purpose of you remembering who you are and loving yourself. We love you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you for that, Roger. And what the words that kept coming in my mind at that point as well, just then, was own who you are. It's okay to own who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my message, because it was challenging for me to do that. That's why they keep having me talk about it. I'll hear what came through later, but yeah.
But how many of us don't do that or fight it? That's the whole point of all this, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not everyone's struggle, but it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
Oh, yeah, a lot. Yeah. And then we have to understand too, energetically, we will make these, how can I say this? We will make these comparisons. About this person has more, this person has that. And so we start comparing ourselves to other people. They tell me that's the biggest mistake that many of you make when you come into the world, using comparison. They said, you've mistaken, how they say, wait a minute, you've mistaken your leaders for your teachers, because you are your teachers. You are your leaders. That's all. The others are just inspiring you to be the leader in your own life. That's what you're living, this life that you're supposed to have, or something like that. They said.
No, it's so absolutely. I totally resonate with that. Yeah, yeah. And everything we go through is there to teach us something, isn't it? No matter what we're going through.
Yes.
Even if it is pain,
right.
Not just emotional, but maybe physical as well. It may be our teaching and many other people around us as well.
Yes. And that is the thing that they wanted us all to understand, even no matter what particular, because we look at our things as challenges or difficulties or whatever. Yeah. Well, if we move through them, though, then we are helping someone else. We're helping the collective energy. The main thing, I can't remember the message, but they gave me right in the beginning of 2020. It said, you forgot to love yourselves. That's what they said. That's why this is all happening, because you've forgotten to love yourself. You've gotten all in, and then they also said, I'm glad you brought up money. To get the one message they gave me, they said the money confused you because you thought that that's what you were supposed to have. You thought that's what was going to make you the most prominent or important, or all that would give you. Go, no, there's just your essence is what is bringing. That is really, really important, but you're supposed to be happy. And you get to happy by moving through the restriction of the restrictions and limitations that are in each of us. And then we start to say, oh, now I feel much better. Now I can live this life. Then we're going to start loving other people too. And we start creating a different world. That was the thing that came through Kevin, and that I'm still like kind of trying to wrap my head around this, because I hadn't listened to it again, that particular recording. They said, you have something that can help change the world. And I said, that's too big for me to think. That's what you all do. You can't, who else is going to do it? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one purpose. Maybe I've always said this on the show, or more, I say it now. We've got multiple purposes. I'm sure, of course we do.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Yes, it's just, I get it, and I really appreciate you sharing these messages, and I hope as well. I know that you're going to go on, and there's more of you to come through. There's more of Wilhelm to come through in the work that you're doing now. You're just at the beginning part of this next phase of your life, so there's much more to come, and I appreciate you coming on here to share that as well, and to inspire others to do the same.
Now, I thank you for creating this platform, and then for everyone too. I want to, it'll be a little bumpy for us in the world, but it's, or especially over the next year. But if we keep doing this kind of work, all of us coming together collectively and doing this, we'll have a much better time, and we will have that great world that we want to see.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you out there as well. And I'm sure, we'll be doing more together. I just know we will, right? This is
Yes.
because I like what you're doing as well. So just reminders for those listening back to the podcast, your website is
RogerBurnley.com, RogerBurnley.com.
Excellent. So people can contact you directly by going onto that side as well. And of course, links for your book, and you've got a LINKTREE as well, which we'll put in the description as well, with many links onto different things. And I think you do also offer some meditation as well.
Yes. And I'm also bringing I found this other perfect person because certain things I don't do as well, but he does these great meditations, and so we're using all of this in my program, and he's extraordinary. So yeah.
Okay, so that's to come. Yeah, well, just go to the website to see that. Yeah, well, that's it. That's interesting. There's a lot of, because meditation was a big key to the getting you out of the way, in a sense, getting the mind noise for yourself out of the way, for you to slow that down, and for this greater part for you to come through. And I know that you do really push that on people, that meditation is easy for us all to do. It's as simple as just getting yourself out the way, to just bringing the noise in the mind down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I did a really fun meditation program because I want people to understand. They think that they have to do something, but I go, no, you just got to be quiet. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, which is difficult in today. There's so much going on, isn't there? There's so much going on. Well, listen, Roger, just thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to getting you back on not too long.
Great, Kevin. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative.